What's up? It is Vlogmas day 10 and I'm doing my adoption video. So thank you guys for asking questions, those who did. I appreciate it. I don't want to go off and rant if it's of no interest to anybody, so we're just going to start with some of the first questions, or I guess I'll give a little bit of background. Actually, I'll just go through these questions because then I'll just hit on some of these things. Were we born province, city, country? So I was born in South Korea. I'm not 100% sure of the province, but I believe it was somewhat close to Seoul. I could be wrong. I do have the exact province in my old paperwork, but I don't have it with me. It's at my parents' house in a binder. But yeah, we can maybe find it at a later date. How old were you when I was adopted? So I was 6 months old. Very young. Obviously I don't remember anything from being over there, and really the only thing I have to go off of is some pictures that were taken while I was there with my foster parents, with the flight attendants, and then whenever I got to the airport. So 6 months old. A little background of your adoptive parents and where or how you grew up or were raised. So my dad is Swedish, my mom is Irish, and they are second generation here in the States. My dad grew up on the West Coast, mom grew up in Ohio, and then in Alaska, so West Coast as well. They were early 40s when they adopted me, so they're 68 now, about to turn 69, and I'm 29, so whatever the math is. They were born in 1948, so early 40s. They were older parents. Yeah, so I did grow up in a Christian family. My mom is a daughter of a pastor, yeah, I grew up in a Christian home my whole life. We were a part of a Bible church, non-denominational church, the entire time I grew up. Doesn't necessarily dictate how my life would go, but you know, if you're a stupid teenager, you're a stupid teenager. But anyway, I grew up in a Christian home. I lived in the same home my whole life until I was married. So I was in Texas, in DFW, North Texas, my whole 22 years. When did we get married? I was 22. So I lived in the same home 22 years, same house 22 years. Parents married throughout my childhood. They're still married today, so thank God for that. Yeah. Where or how you grew up as raised? So I did attend a small private elementary school growing up through fifth grade. In 6th grade, I went to a charter / public school, not really the same thing, but charter school in here in the Metroplex, and I was there from 6th through 8th. 9th grade, I went to a public high school, and after that, went to community college for a couple of years, and then moved to a state university. I did grow up with one brother. He's not blood. It's through the same adoptive family and relationship there. So not blood. So he was born from a different family, different set of biological parents. He's 1.5 years older than I am. But yeah, we grew up together. How old were your parents and why did they adopt? So they were in their early 40s. They wanted to adopt because they couldn't have kids. They tried and it just wasn't physically possible. So then they looked into adoption and stumbled across my brother and I. So we're extremely thankful and grateful for that. My Korean name is Ilwong Kim. So that's a sick name, right? Anyways. Next question. Do you ever feel a disconnect living in the USA since you were born in another country? So one of the nice things about the States is that it kind of is a melting pot of other races, cultures, ethnicities. So I don't feel disconnected, and my parents really did a great job when I was growing up. They were more than willing and encouraged me and signed me up for Korean heritage camps and exposed me to the culture and told me I was adopted from really the get-go, as far as I can remember. Extremely supportive, loving parents. So not once did I feel really disconnected being in the States because of them. They were really the bridge to that. So that, I mean, they're a huge help, huge influence. So I didn't feel disconnected. Yeah, I mean, growing up, it was interesting to answer questions that other kids had or other friends or whoever encountered me. Like, why were you adopted? Or what's adoption? Or one question that I always will remember is in 6th grade, one girl asked me if I was born Korean, which was funny because obviously you're born. Your race, it doesn't change over time. I know what she meant, but anyway, it was just kind of a funny question. How many siblings do you have? I have one brother. He is older by 1.5 years. He is not blood, so he has a different set of biological parents, and that's it. I don't know if I have any other brothers or sisters from my biological mother. No idea. Or biological father. No idea. My biological mom was 15 when she had me. Again, I don't know anything on my father. So she was extremely young. My guess is my biological father was kind of in the same ballpark. I don't know. He could have been a creep. I mean, he's kind of a creep. Anyway, don't really know. Do you know birth family? Yeah, not really a lot. Besides my mother being 15, I think I have her name. No information on my dad. No idea about other brothers and sisters over there. So very, very little information. I'm told that if I went through the agency, I might be able to track her down and figure it all out. But I don't know a lot about her and nothing on him. Ever wish to travel to South Korea? So I do, but I don't wish to travel to South Korea more than any other country. For whatever reason, I don't feel an attachment to South Korea, which is different. I mean, adoptees have different connections and feelings all over the spectrum. I'm kind of on the other side where I don't really feel my roots being there. Not really an interest in going there other than just to see what it's like. So, I would like to go there or Thailand or Europe or wherever, all the same. So I'm not fueled to go there for really any other reason. Being adopted from there, I was exposed to the culture a lot whenever I was younger, and I just didn't really have an interest. As far as I'm concerned and my parents are concerned, like my parents and my mom and dad here, I feel more attached to them than my biological side and where I'm originally from. Like I would rather visit like Sweden and Ireland, honestly, more than South Korea, just because they're who my parents are, and that's where they're from. And I mean, they are my parents. They are my mom and dad. So would like to travel to South Korea, but again, just for tourism or whatever. When did you know you were adopted? I've known I was adopted since I can remember. Growing up as a kid, mom and dad would constantly tell me that. we would sit down and go through pictures and news articles of us whenever we came over here to the States, and there was always some form of Korean culture in the home growing up, whether it was a flag or clothes or what have you. So always knew I was adopted. They didn't tell me when I was like 15 or something like that. It's also kind of hard to hide that because we look so different. Oh, which is also really fun. Being adopted is awesome whenever you look so different, because when you go to restaurants and things of that nature, they always ask if it's, you know, if we're separate parties. Like they'll come up to my parents and they'll be like, table for two, and they're like, no, table for four. Or they'll come up to my brother and I and they're like, table for two, and we're like, no, table for four. It's also funny to introduce them as my parents because we look so different. It's just kind of funny. Also in my line of work, I meet with people daily. I'm a financial planner, so I do meet with new clients who don't know what I look like. So it is fun to for them to see my name as Peter Samuelson, and I come out as a South Korean when they're expecting some, you know, Swedish-looking dude, which isn't the case. So that's always fun. So those questions: do I feel disconnected living in the U.S. since I was born in another country? How many siblings do I have? Do I know my birth family? Ever wish to travel to South Korea? And when did you know you were adopted? Those questions were from Aaron Esslinger, so thank you so much for those. I see here you love adoption and you have an adopted daughter, but through foster care. That's awesome. If you have any other questions, let me know. I'll be more than happy to answer them for you. I'm a huge fan of adoption. Love it. Obviously, I'm a huge fan. My parents were a huge influence. I mean, they can really make or break, but they just godly mother and father, and they constantly pursued us and loved on us. You know, and that's who makes a mom and dad. Truthfully, it doesn't matter what, you know, what womb I come out of, or who, you know, gave birth to me or whatever. I mean, it's the ones who love and devote their lives to you, which is awesome. This question is from Hardy Cindy, I think. Mm-hmm. Her question is, how did you cope with your adoptive parents? There wasn't really a lot of coping, if you will. My brother and I, since the get-go, we knew we were adopted. At such a young age, it was really ingrained inside of us, so we weren't told when we were older. Again, that's kind of hard to hide. If they were Asian, it'd be a little different, but they're not. So we didn't really have to cope a lot, and as I said, the way that they loved us and cared for us removed the need for really any coping at all. So just great parents. We always felt at home, we always felt loved, and we always felt like they were our mother and father. So going to the camps growing up, the Korean heritage camps growing up, we would have other kids who would have complete other emotions, feelings, and thoughts. Like they would wake up and, you know, sweating, screaming for, you know, their mother and father in South Korea. And my brother and I just weren't like that. So we were on the other spectrum of being at home and being loved and cared for. And as far as our parents are concerned, like they're our parents. Anyway, so that's really it. Again, I appreciate your questions. If anybody else has additional questions, comments, concerns, or what have you, I'd be more than happy to address those in a future video. So don't be shy, let me know. I'd be more than happy to answer. But I'm a huge supporter of adoption. Kang and I also might adopt children later on in our lives as well. You'll hear all sorts of great positive stories, and you'll hear great negative stories. I would just encourage you, if you're curious about adoption, to pray about it, to see where the Lord leads, and to see if your heart is moving you that way, because it's great. Honestly, if your kids are blood or not, blood or adopted, you can still have the same sorts of outcomes. So yeah, let me know if you guys have any other questions. Again, I'd be more than happy to answer them in another video. you guys are awesome. So thank you for those who did ask questions. And yeah, we'll see you guys later.
Oh my gosh.
Here, baby, right here.
Oh no! Daddy's getting them for you. You did it. Good job.